it's really nice to see that you guys actually are enjoying talking to each other, and that I hope you're meeting people or talking to people you've never met before. So wonderful. Okay, before we go to our next speaker, I want to share with you an experience I have with her. So quite often I seem like an unreliable person to work with, because I'm like, let's do this, and we could do this, and then we could do that. And everyone's always talking to me like I'm this naive person who doesn't see the obstacles. The obstacles they always show me is that this is a tiny city and you will never be able to do this. I have actually, speaking of, contacted Campus Kristiansund to be hired and arrange a light show and a video show and do a concert for the opening ceremony. And of course, they did not reply. But with Nordic Lights, the CEO of Axel, the CEO of Nordic Lights, and I are planning a light show in November with like 3 separate rooms, 3 different music genres, and the light show will support sort of the music. And Bratthallen is sponsoring us with light equipment. So this will happen. But okay, thank you. So the reason why I want to do it in Kristiansund, and the reason why I dare to think big, is because every now and then I meet crazy people who join me. And Eigunn is one of them. When I was a student, I came back and I wanted to do a show, and I wanted to do it in Festiviteten. And I don't know how many thousands, if not even hundreds and thousands of krona it takes to rent this place, but I went, hey Eigunn, can I get it for free? And she said, okay. But even us crazy people had to be stopped by, it required 150,000 for the light designer, and I had 10,000 krona. But it was wonderful. So when she left, at the time, we didn't know that Turil was going to take over the job. Thank God it's Turil. She's as crazy, and she's helping me actually doing a festival. But at the time when Eigunn left, I was very devastated, because how is it going to happen? But let me tell you a bit more about her. She loves bench pressing. She's a co-pilot. She loves doing volunteer work, and she loves taking risks. She's worked on various projects within different fields, both in Norway as well as abroad. And she's now the chair, well, usually it's called chairman, but I'm changing it to chairperson of the board of Normoria. And she's now also the museum director of Nordmørsmuseet and the international coordinator for Møre og Romsdal County. And she's studied at NTNU, Universitetet i Oslo, and London School of Economics, and studied political science, political economy, and of course Russian language and literature. And so based on, I would say, the security history of Norway, I am so afraid that we will have to need her to use the Russian language in the future. But I will welcome her, and oh, it's going to be amazing.
Okay. When I arrived here today, someone told me that I should speak English. So now we're doing this in English. The presentation is in Norwegian. I have a partner with me on stage here. I think she's also going to go into the second language. But thank you so much for the introduction. I was kind of in awe listening to everything this person had been and done. And I'm very happy to hear that this has been me in meeting with you. Today I'm here as the chairwoman of the board of OMKK Eigunn. It's a terribly bureaucratic name for a very interesting company. And what it is, in few words, is it's the company responsible for building Normoria. Nothing less. And my title today is Normoria, the cultural house in Kristiansund. Is it an epistle for the few or an adventure for the many? And I have to admit, I had to Google gentrification. And when I realized what it was, I was so provoked. And I was like, what? He doesn't mean that I'm going to talk about this as, trying to suppress something, or is this like, shouldn't this be here? But then when I listened to you guys earlier today, and when I started thinking back to the origins of Normoria and what the main purpose of the whole building is, then I realized that no, this is the complete opposite, and that's what I'm going to be telling you about today. So, I usually start with this. This is our current picture of the main hall in Normoria. And Normoria, as you've been told already, it's a cultural house consisting of 4 main actors. It's the library in Kristiansund, it's the cultural school, it's the regional museum, or the head office of the regional museum, and it's the Opera of Kristiansund. These are not small institutions. We are state-funded, regionally funded, 2 of us at least. We're based in a municipality. We're not relying on project support. So we're the basis of the cultural environment. When many people talk about Normoria, they talk about, okay, so now you're building the house for the few, for the elite. And we go like, yes, and we're building it for the many. And that's the main purpose of the house. This room is the room for the many. And we've been discussing the size of this room. I can tell you haven't been reading the local press here as much as we have. It's been discussed up and here and there in many arenas. How big should this room be? Should it be 1,000 seats? Should it be 2,000 seats? 700? Should it be even smaller? This room has 550 seats approximately. A little less when we actually use the symphony area. But that's a perfect size. And I can tell you it's a perfect size because economically, financially, it's a smart size to actually have performances throughout the year. But it's also a smart size because this room is going to be the main stage for the kids around the whole region. This is going to be their first experience being on a professional, large stage, and it's one of the best stages in Norway, in one of the best rooms, where you can stand in the back of the stage, talking to Stian in the back here, and he can hear you perfectly without any microphones, without anything. It's an opera stage. Can you imagine what that's going to be like for an 8-year-old standing here like that and meeting the audience like that? So this is what we're building. And I have to take you through some of the boring facts of this, and I'll come back to why. When I started as head of culture and business, actually, which was my first job in the municipality, in 2011, this project was one of the first projects that landed on my desk. And I remember it so vividly. It was like a big architectural sketch book. Here you go, good luck. This is what we want to build in Kristiansund. Right before I started, they just finished an international architectural competition, is that what it's called? Yeah. Where C.F. Møller, that Eigunn pointed out quite correctly, won that competition and sketched up this amazing cultural house that we were going to build. At that point, we were talking about different types of actors in the building. We were talking about the university or Høgskolen here in the region. We were talking still about the opera. The museum wasn't anywhere to be seen in this project. The cultural school was not there. The library was there. So we had different types of actors that was going to be in the building. And then after we started working with it, we discovered that, okay, so not all of these are as determined to get inside as the others. So we had to have serious talks with each of them saying, okay, can you commit to this project? Do you want to be in it? Do you want to carry on with us now and sketch it out and seek the funding and get it realized? Realized, that's not the English phrase for it. Well, maybe, yeah. And some of them fell out and some of them came in. And the cultural school and the museum was two of the parties that got into it. So from then on out, it was the opera, the museum, the cultural school, and the library, and that's the four parts that are in it now. So in 2011, up until 2013, we worked on transforming the architectural sketches to an actual budget. How much is this going to cost if this is what we want? And I remember also very vividly the first time I put this out for our politicians. And they were kind of, I don't know if they were crying or laughing, but that was the first time they actually got a number for it. And it was a quite high number. We were going up towards, is it a billion? No, it's not a billion. Milliard. So we were at about 800 or 900 million kroners. That's a fair amount of money. They sent it back to me and said, okay, we see what you're saying. This is too much, so we need to scale it down. So that's also what we did. From 2013 until 2014, we went from about 21,000 square meters till around 15,000 square meters. We were allowed to pull down a bigger amount of the existing architecture in the school that we're going to build on. And from there on out, we were just like shrinking it. So in 2014, we got the funding from the municipality that was already, actually that was the owner of the project. But we also got the funding from the region, Møre og Romsdal. And then we started the big chase for the state. And we chased them, and we chased them, and we talked. I don't know how many people I've talked to. You missed the politicians there. I'm so happy that I don't see politicians there. I'm so happy that you're here. Because usually I speak to politicians and bureaucracy, whereas I very rarely meet people like you. So in 2018, I remember that fall, my boss came into my office. He had the door closed, and he said, Eigunn, you have to sit down. I've heard rumors from Oslo. They're bringing the money. And I started crying, because I cry a lot. At least after I had kids, I cry an enormous amount of tears. So I started crying, and then we kind of, back to business. And I said, okay, so how much are they bringing? Not enough. We were applying for 235 million approximately, to fund the opera and the museum, which are the state-funded actors in this. And they said, if you can do this for 150 million, do you think you can do that? If you get that from the state, can you do that? And that was 150 million from the state, 150 million from the county, and then the rest was the municipality. And we went to work. So that winter, 2018 until 2019, we worked day and night. What we basically did was we took the sketches that we had and the budget that we had, and we went like, okay, so we start at one end and we start twisting and turning everything and see if we can scale down the square meters and if we can get the budget down. And when we went across to the new year in 2019, we said, okay, you know what, we think we can do this. So are you then going to come with the cash? And we worked throughout that spring and throughout that summer, and in September 2019, I think it was the 5th or 6th of September, the cultural minister, Trine Skei Grande, came to Kristiansund. It was right before the state budget was going to be put out, and we had a press conference in Festiviteten, and she said, we're bringing the money. And from there on out, that's when the real work started. So bear in mind, we worked with this since the start of the 2000s. That's when we started working on, where do we want to put it? It's not random that it's in the middle of the center. It's not random that it's on the location where the original museum was. A lot of people talk about, you should put it there and there and there. It's not a random location. This has been worked with throughout years. So many people have been involved in this. And when we then reached 2020, we actually came to the phase where we established the building company, or the byggherre, as we say in Norwegian, so the company that I'm heading now. And we started just getting ready for the details of the project. That's also when we got the final go from the politicians on each level. So this, I just want to show you, because this is one of the main changes that we made. I think, Elisabeth, you need to get ready to get up. So if you look at the top, that's our first alternative. That was how the building structure looked. And don't worry that you can't read everything on it, because I just want to show you how the structure of the housing changed. We needed to scale it down in square meters because we had one firm principle in the project. We're not budging on quality. This needs to be state-of-the-art for the actors that are going to be in it. The project that we had was good. It was a very good architectonic structure in the whole building. C.F. Møller did a great job sketching it up and visualizing how it was going to be. But we needed to look at how we could make it smarter, how we can ensure that the whole structure was open to the public as much as possible, also after we moved into it. So we switched the opera room. If you can see, I don't know, no, you can't see. Can you see this arrow? No, you can't see that either. If you look up on the picture on the top there, you see the opera room is the one that's laying like that. It's a big blue one. That one, in this picture, we just shifted it 90 degrees. And what that did with the building is that we then created a back of house that allows for an active back where everyone who works in the house can move freely and work together, and it's just like an open space with all the people and all the professionals working there, and also all the volunteers, obviously. And then the front of the house is going to be much more available for everyone else. Our main theme when we started the project, Elisabeth has been in this as long as I have, was that we wanted to create kind of like an indoor-outdoor atmosphere so people can kind of move through the building without actually having anything to do there, but then we can kind of grab hold of them. Oh, do you want to go in and see the exhibition at the museum? Oh, maybe you want to borrow a book. Or who's that practicing in the main room now? Can we have a look in and see what that is? So we want to create a building that kind of is experienced as just a square where you would normally just be, but then something will catch your attention. And one of those things is the library. And I'll show you this one to you. The one on your left is the original structure of the building. That was when C.F. Møller was the architect. The one on the right is when Henning Larsen came in as architect. And this just goes to show how long we've been working at this, because we've changed architects several times. And it hurts every time, because everyone has their vision of how this is going to be. And of course, we were working with it just year after year after year. We fall in love with this concept, and then, oh, no, we can't do that. So then we fall in love with this concept, and then we can't do that. But the one on the right here, that is how the building is going to look now. You see that we shifted, whereas it was more like kind of like a gliding structure, connecting the two buildings on each end. It is now a much more, it splits it up a little bit more. Because what this building also is a new building connecting two existing architectural structures. One of them is from 1924, and that's the old school building. then we have torn down much of that. We actually tore down pretty much everything that was bombed during the war. And then you have Folkets Hus, the People's House, from 1959 on the far end there. And those two structures from before and after the World War are the housings, or the houses that we're actually going to connect with the new architecture. And Folkets Hus, the People's House, that's going to be exactly that. And Elisabeth here, Elisabeth Solheim, she is the head of the library. Nothing less. And she's been in this project, and the library was always meant to be a part of the cultural house. Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about where we are now with the library?
Well, we are now in the detailed planning, and it's quite fantastic, I think, because we've been waiting for this so many years. From the start of the 2000s, as Eigunn said, and until we really started to believe in it when the money came. Because this has been a struggle, I think, walking through the desert sometimes. And as you said, we are going to be there in Folkets Hus. And you should know, the library was burned down during the World War, as many other buildings in Kristiansund, and was rebuilt in Siams gate. I can't write, maybe around there, I think. And in 1994, we moved from there to the Norwegian Central Bank's house, right in the middle of Kristiansund, and both of these buildings were built after the World War. And also this one, and all of the three buildings are what we called gjenreisningsbygg. And that's quite important for Kristiansund. We are the gjenreisningsby. So we are looking very forward to moving in there, and together with all the others, of course. But because I think that to be able to work together will bring a new dimension to the cultural life in Kristiansund. Since it has gone so many years since we started planning, we have been through a lot of different stages, I would say. And that has been difficult, but it also brings opportunities. In the last years, we have been talking a lot more of sustainability, bærekraft. And that is one of the things we have been thinking a lot more of in the library. Because we have a history from Siams gate and now to Folkets Hus. And that is something we would like to emphasize. We are bringing a lot of our history with us. I don't think it's no longer appropriate to just get out all you have and bring in all new. And the library also have a lot of art, because when they built in 1957, they also made a lot of artwork to put in the library. And a lot of that is we are bringing with us into this building to take care of the history. Some glass art, for instance. We have a big painting, and we have a lot of other small pieces that we are bringing in. And that, I think, we are now building our identity around in the new building. So, a red thread, I think. So we are being the Folkets Hus again, here. And library, it has changed a lot during the years. And in 2014, we got a new library law in Norway, because we have a library law. And it states that every Norwegian municipality should have a library with a head of library. And what it brought with it was a thought that the library should no longer just be a place for the books. It should be a place for people. And that's quite new. We are, of course, working towards that, in that building we are now. But I think with a new house, that would be fantastic. Because in the front of the house, we have windows on the, what do you call it, ground floor. So people can go there, look in and see, it's people there. They are doing something. It would not be the books standing in front, it will be the people. That's important. And what the library law also told us was that we should not only lend out books, but we shall have gatherings, we shall be a meeting place. We are going to be a place for debate. And that's not an easy thing to do, just out of the blue. So this is work in progress. And I think moving together with 3 other, like the museum, for instance, that will be our closest neighbor.
Yes.
Yes, in the house. And I know Eigunn very much from before, yes. we can do a lot together. I don't know the English word for it, but samarbeid.
Collaboration.
Collaboration. That would be a main point for us and for all the actors in Normoria. Have I forgotten something now?
No, that's perfect. Has she forgotten something? Is there anything you want to ask about the library?
What I would also say is that we are planning for the library to be a sort of place where you can come and feel home. There should be a recognition. In Kristiansund, we have a cultural history, and there are a lot of, what should I say, we are not the upper class, all of us. And that should be reflected in what we do with the library and how we bring it to life. So that's why we are bringing in the history, but also the new, and to make people feel not at home. It should not be like a real institution, but a place in the middle. That's what we're aiming for and hoping for, at least. And so will time show if we succeed, but that is our main goal. And to make it a place for everyone to come, not only those that are using the library today, but also those who are not. Maybe they also can come and find out what a wonderful thing this is and what we can do together to bring it to life. Thank you.
Thank you. And what we can also mention is that Elizabeth and the library has already had a workshop where they invited in the audience and everyone who was interested to actually have an opinion on what the library should be. And that's the same way that we're working in the museum. So we're trying to interact with the public, asking now, 2.5 years before we are actually in the building, what should this be for you? How can we incorporate that in our plans? Yeah, and we're going to do the same specifically with the younger generation. So in 2021, we signed our contract. The new building company signed a contract with Hent, which is our builder. And we have something called in Norwegian totalentreprise med samspill. And that's a hot topic. It basically means that we decided who was going to build the building, and we started working together with them on our sketches, on our drawings, to see, okay, how are we going to do this in real life to avoid as many hiccups as possible when we actually start building. In 2022, we finished basically most of our plan work, and we're now actually allowed to build. We had it through the political spheres to actually get an approval of starting to build, and we're continuously planning the details inside the house. So this year we started, I was about to say with our chisels up there, we had a formal start of tearing down the buildings. So now we've torn down everything that's going to be torn down. We've ripped out everything that's going to be ripped out, so you just see the shells of the buildings. If you haven't been there, take a look up there when you're out today. Just go around the area because it's quite spectacular. And the people saying that 10,000 square meters isn't enough, they don't know how much that is. That's a lot of square meters. Now we're bombarding the whole area because this is mountains. This is Kristiansund. We're built on like a rock. So we need to come down through the rock. Basically, we're using dynamite like 2-3 times a day for 2-3 months now to actually get down to the level where we're going to be. And what we're building there is the opera room. It's the museums, magazines. It's everything that we need in the base structure. So this is what we're doing this year. And next year, we're going to start, or this year we're going to start building, and next year you're going to really see the shell of the building taking shape. But that's also, this time that we're going into now, this is also the time where we're starting to plan how this is going to be when we move in. The building's going to be ready in 2025, the spring of 2025, fingers crossed. And then we're going to start putting in everything connected to the stage, everything connected to the logistics in the house, everything connected to the exhibition of the museum, the bookshelves of the library, everything that's going to be in the house. That's what we're going to start with that spring. And in August 2025, there's a grand opening. By that time, we need to have had a serious conversation about what other stuff is going to go on in this house. We need to say from August 2025 until August 2030, what's going to be going on here? What kind of house is this going to be? Who's going to be in it, in addition to the 4 big parties that are involved? What's this going to be for you? This is a conversation that we need to start now. We have started it like with different groups already, but we need to be consistent and we need to ask everyone who wants to have an opinion on it. So in 2026, that's going to be our first full year of just being open, functioning in this amazing new house. And this is what it's going to look like. This is just, I'm going to show you some of the pictures of the current architecture. I'm saying current. I hope it's not going to change again because I'm going to have a heart attack. But when Henning Larsen came into the project, because they were the architect that Hent, our contractor, brought in, they started out with this image on the left. And there was a huge, I don't know what to call it. It was kind of like a war going on in the media and the social media, and people were saying, oh, are you building a bus station? Are you building a shopping mall? What is this horrendous new building? And obviously because people had gotten used to the way it used to look from 2011. That was a little bit different. So this was kind of a breach of how it was going to be. Then we said that, okay, in any case, we need to tone it down a little bit. So the image on the right there, that's how it's going to appear roughly. And what you can see is that we're taking out everything that kind of steals from the existing architecture. We're trying to build something that's going to stand in its own right, but is also giving back to the existing. And what that did is that it also gave the regional authorities and the people on, what's it called, fylkesantikvar? Yeah. Anyways, the people who know old buildings, like I should, actually, in the museum, they said that this is a much better way of building it to not steal too much from the existing architecture. So this is another angle. You see, we've taken out the roof top on top of that, but we're carrying through the kind of like wavy movement that you can see throughout the building. And that is actually one of the visual functions of, it has a function too, but that's one of the things that we brought with us from the old project. So this kind of wavy appearance. And the top there that you see, that's kind of high up. So that's the stage tower. So that's basically how we can do opera. And that's going to have, it's not called skifer. What's skifer called in English? Yeah, so that's slate. And slate is very common here in Kristiansund. So we're bringing a lot of the old architecture back to the house. This is also just a picture, if you see it from Festiviteten and downwards, this is how it's going to be, the picture on the right. And from our angle, where we're standing now, if you went a little bit further up the street, this is how it's going to look from the other end of Langveien. And as you see that you can kind of like look, it's kind of like Elizabeth says, that you want to stand on the outside and still feel that you're part of the inside. You can stand on the inside and feel that you're still a bit outdoors. So the whole hall that goes down through the terrain there, that's kind of like the main ore of the building. That's what's going to make, not random people, but people who doesn't really have anything to do in there actually move through the building. This is the kind of indoor bike path, if I could call it that. So we want people to move inside the building, get inside the glasses, inside the doors, so that we can snatch them up and say, this could be interesting for you, or what do you think about this? Or just make them part of something that they wouldn't usually or otherwise look out themselves. These are just some pictures to make you get a feel of how it's going to be on the back. This is the back of the house. This is going to be the main area for the cultural school. So this is where all the kids are going to get their tutoring, their piano lessons, dance lessons, everything that's going to be going on in the back there. This is a picture of the library. This is kind of early days. You can't see the current because it's a work in progress, as Elizabeth is saying, so we're working on this right now. What kind of materials are we going to use? How is this going to feel when you actually go into the room? This is one of the dance rooms. The opera has dance lessons with hundreds of kids. So that's one of the things that are going to be moving into this house. This is the front. So when you're standing kind of a little bit down the square down here, you're going to be looking at, this is Folkets Hus. We're going to take back the architecture. We've gotten rid of some of the architecture that was kind of put on it through the years. So the first floor here, that's going to be the main, it's the children's department, right, Elizabeth? The first floor, yeah. Yeah, and that's also different from a lot of cultural buildings where they usually put the children's department further up in the building because that's safer and less, I don't know, attractive, or I don't know what it is. Safer, I doubt, because we want the kids to be in full view and we want them to feel that this is their house from the moment they enter the building. Here's just another one from opposite side of the main road. And bear in mind that we're building this house right next to a main road into the city here. It's not the municipality's road. It's not something that we can just do something with. So we need to think a lot about the infrastructure around the building too. Like, how are people going to get to it? Who are the people who are going to get into it? Who are our main audience? And what I've already told you now, main audience, children. People who doesn't have a car. And what does that mean? That means that parking slots are not necessarily the main issue of this building. So we have had a lot of discussion around this. We need to make this accessible for everyone, but in particular, the children and the youth. This is how it's going to look in night as we envision it now. The slate and kind of like the exterior of the building can be used with light, can be used with sound. Also, we're thinking a lot more with this structure than just what's going to be on the inside. And I know that Britt and the committee have also been talking about this, but this will be a landmark in Kristiansund, and it will also be very visible. It's quite tall. This is the main foyer. Yes, foyer. Yes, that's kind of like the walking path down the road. If you go through here now, you go down the stairs and you come through into the museums, exhibitions, the libraries, children's department, and then you enter Kongens Plass, which is the square in front here. So this is supposed to be not just for the audience, not just for the people doing something particular in the building, but just hang out. This is from the other end, where you can see the road is coming up on the left side of the building. And if you see that guy in the jeans there, is about to get into the museum's exhibitions. This is the black box that we're building. It's a rehearsal room, mainly, but it's also a room for a performance. And what it does for our other buildings, which is quite essential, is that when the opera has the rehearsal sessions, which is a lot of days during the year, they don't do that in Festiviteten from here on. They're going to do it in this room, mainly, which means that we can use Festiviteten as a cultural house during the full season, which is in the winter, mainly, and we can use the main opera room in the cultural house, too, while the opera still has a good place to do their rehearsals. This is back to the opera room. I know that the opera was just visiting another opera that had a room that was similar to this just a couple of weeks ago. And there were, as I've been told, crying and emotions coming through, because finally now, like Elizabeth says, we're starting to believe that this is going to actually happen. And we're starting to understand what is going to happen. So it's kind of like a terror mixed with extreme happiness. So this is the last picture that I have, and it's just a back entrance into the building. But my point with this is that it should show that, as I've said 10 times already, this is a house where you can just hang out. This is a place where you can just be without anyone looking at you and questioning, why are you here? The whole building is kind of going to be like a library in your head. It's going to be a place, it's free. You don't have to tell anyone why you're there. We can sneak in a little bit of art, a little bit of culture. We can build our democracy. We can build our society by you being there. And that's my final point to this is, I hear we're asking about the politicians, we're asking about the money, and we're asking about everyone who's in charge. I want to draw your attention to these 4 parties that are in this house: the library, the cultural school, the opera, and the museum. We are big institutions. We want to collaborate. We can draw attention to the arts. We can also be a partner in this, and I think that we have to look more and more into those kind of collaborations to actually get attention. We are already on the state budget. We can actually be the door opener in many cases. So I just want to put that out there. I think there's going to be a debate later, so maybe we can, someone can challenge me back. But I can say, as head of the museum at least, we want to do this. We want to get in touch. We want someone to come and say, you know what, I have an idea. What do you think about that? And we're actually big enough to do something about it. So that's just like my final appeal today. And now you've seen some of Normoria. I don't think any of us are going to understand what this is until we open the doors. But we have something great to look forward to. Thank you.
Hello, ready? I just want to share another personal experience, because I hear a lot of previous generations tell us that they can't keep up with our generation because of digital development. But I want to remind you of how you guys shape us so much. I grew up at the library. I would go there almost every day when I was a child, and I was so lucky that Elisabeth gave me a job during high school, and these women shaped me way more than they think. Actually, Elisabeth shaped my leadership style, and I haven't told her this, but often I would say, what would Elisabeth do? Or I worked with a lot of other young leaders, and I would say, you know, my boss, when she was in this situation, she did this. And they shaped me so much that whenever I would move to different cities, the first thing I would do was to look for the nearest library, even so. So you do shape us, and you do achieve. I have a massive belief that you will achieve this.